Okay, good. So people are coming back in. So I'm able to share my screen, aren't I? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. So everyone's back with us, hopefully, or they're coming back. Okay, so we've said some things about politics and leadership and communication. We've made those links. And I just want to ask this question then. Are there certain kinds of leadership that suit a certain kind of organization? And I just put that out to everyone. I heard something happening.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. What else? Can you flesh that out for us?
I'm trying to. Well, I'm not sure if we discussed it before, but I think that in certain settings, and then depending on the goal and the size of the organization, adding more, gonna loosely say like red tape to get to the leader is more likely to hinder progress. And whereas in other situations, like for example the Catholic Church, which is like huge, it makes sense that not everybody can get to that. Like there I'm not sure, I don't remember what you call it, but that there are like levels of what is that called, of like authority, I don't know, like levels of management that deal with certain things. Yeah.
Okay. What we said at the beginning was that a leader is a guide. We had a deliberation as to whether or not a facilitator. We said they need to be able to talk through a task. They need to allocate resources. They need to understand the problem. And with this political dimension, we've said, you know, maybe they need to manage reputation, manage the optics, and collaborate. Is that always, I mean, are those things required in equal measure in all organizations? I guess that's another way of asking the question. Rochelle, you're saying that the hierarchy has different degrees of importance in different kinds of organization. Sometimes it's just a practicality and it's essential. And you're saying that about the Catholic Church, for example, from what we've said. And in other times, in other cases, that hierarchy and those layers adds a layer of red tape and perhaps inefficiency, meaning that things that need to be said to a leader or, you know, a CEO or a manager don't reach that person because of the way communication happens.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. All right, great. What else, does anyone else have any particular points about the relationship between a kind of leadership and a kind of organization? Do you think there are organizations then that require a strong leadership but manifests itself in a soft way, if we're using the language that Bowen gave us about being hard or strong?
Dr. Shepherd, could I use the examples of two countries to probably to give my idea of two different type of leadership?
Yes, you
right?
can.
If it is, we look at the traditional leadership of Russia, right? The type of country that Russia is, and the type of leadership that comes out of Russia, you get someone that is forceful, that sets the country apart, you know, whereas when you compare to the leadership that usually comes out of the United States by number 45, right? Number 45, right? By number 45, right? You don't usually get, because United States is a democratic society, so you usually get a forceful but more or less warm, you know, leadership, right? So a leader that reaches out to his people, reaches out to other country, and more or less, you know, try and bring a sense of unity, whereas the leadership in Russia is a leadership that sets Russia apart from other countries and identifies Russia as this force to be reckoned with. So I think that that is a definition in terms of two different types of leadership. We have one leadership that is strong and forceful. The other leadership is strong, forceful, but yet more or less welcoming and warm in terms of dealing with others.
Right. So anyone of you who's studied political science will probably know more about this than I do. But certainly in my PhD thesis, I was looking at media discourse. I was analysing media, and I was looking at the political situation between Manning and Rowley through newspaper editorials. So I have an interest in the way politics kind of connects and gives us some examples of types of leadership and communication. But anyway, so I guess we would say we're talking about strongman politics, or a strongman leader, or a benevolent dictator, maybe, in Russia, or maybe a malevolent dictator in terms of Russia. And we're talking about a leader who's more democratic, therefore not autocratic, who's diplomatic in their language. Would you say that was a fair characterization of what you're saying, Bowen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So good. So we have different types of leadership model. I don't know if Greer has anything that she could tell us about.
The only thing sorry, you had a specific question for me?
It was more, I was wondering if you'd ever seen the kind of democratic leadership not work in organization, because you strike me as someone who prizes the power of communication, and yet I wonder if you've ever worked in organizations where it required a kind of, not strong man or strong woman, but something less workshoppy and diplomatic or democratic to get something done.
Mm-hmm. I think that definitely when I was like an RA or a CA in university and dealing with students, and again I had an incredible boss and an incredible training, but God knows what these students were going to do next, and we had to manage hundreds of students.
Right.
And so let's just say that after 3 years on staff of being an RA and then being a community advisor in charge of 3 buildings, I never wrote up a student, because we had the power to write up students. You get, I don't even know how many it is, but you get so many write-ups, you get kicked out of residence, you can't live on campus anymore, which happened a lot. And write-ups from drinking in halls to anything, having guests when you're not supposed to have guests, stuff like that, right? Just
you never wrote people up?
No, I didn't have to. I never.
Oh, okay.
Never, not because I chose not to, I just never had to. And I kind of became a legend, because they're like, at first everybody was like, she's not writing people up. Everyone, like week 1, you had, every RA had write-ups, and you knew who the problem students were. I had problem students, but when they saw me bend in the corner, as nice as you all think I am, when they saw me bend the corner, or it was kind of like Grace in the elevator, she's coming up, like people got their stuff together. And it was because they did not want to disappoint me. It was not because they didn't want to get caught. They didn't want to disappoint me, because they needed me, and they knew that they needed me. And if they disappointed me, I couldn't help them, which they saw happen to other students that needed me. And at the end of the day, they're just the students living in the middle of Toronto by themselves with just an RA that has their back. So
right.
Yeah.
So that sounds like someone, you as a leader managed to get people's respect, and therefore, I mean, you didn't have to write people up. But have you ever worked in an organization where you've seen the need for a strong arm kind of control of a process, rather than what you did, which is garner respect, or as we've seen already, talk about, manage to kind of get people collaborating? Have you ever seen it done the other way and been required?
Mm-hmm. So I suppose the most uncomfortable position I've ever been in is catching people who were stealing money cashiers who were stealing money from tills at Whole Foods Market. So
right.
on any given day, you're doing the banking for, by the end of the day, with ships involved, 100 plus tills that you have to balance. Well, they have to balance their own tills. I have to monitor it. That was, I think, when I became an expert at Excel, and I designed and created a sheet to monitor it. And what was happening, and I had suspected it, which is why I did this program on Excel, was that they were stealing, like, if you're up or down £5, £5, we're not going to flag you.
Right.
But you can steal £2, you know, once a week, every week, if that's what it is. And after 2 years, have quite, you know, a cash flow. And then because I implemented the system, I'm the one that has to institute the discipline / firing. And if it's one thing I avoided as a leader, it was firing people. Unless you made it really easy for me. If it was black and white, then no problem. But if it was like, so because I created the system and went back in the past 3 years of till balances and saw that you have been consistently stealing from Whole Foods Market for the past 3 years at £2 a week, every week consistently, it is clear that it's no longer a mistake. You're fired. It was not a comfortable position, but I'm the one that kind of had to, and that was just, there was no give. There was no, what do we do? There was no workshopping. How do we deal with it? It was black and white, and it was black and white and laid out clearly when it was not before. We just didn't have a system in place to put our finger on it. It was based on suspect. And I have big eyes for a reason. And because of a system that I put in place, I created this whole, it shut down the operation. Because it wasn't one, it was several.
Okay.
It was, and some of them were my friends, you know, some of them are still my friends. Some of them are still my friends, but I mean, I was friends with everyone, probably not, also probably iffy. I would not recommend, if you are leading a large team, to be as friendly as I am, but
yeah. So essentially you had to institute a process so that you had evidence to, you know, be able to pin a particular accusation or pin a particular situation on individuals who were failing in their responsibility. That was one of your leadership, that was one of the leadership functions.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we're just getting to this orientation then of talking about models and style. And then we're going to do our workshop a small problem and then come back and talk about it. And that workshopping of that small problem, I think we could do in 20 minutes. So that will be the end of the lecture. All right, so I'm just letting you know that we're heading towards that point, just because I think students are probably hanging on and wondering what we're talking about. All right.
I did put the link. I know that it's been shared in my tutorial, but I just wanted to make sure that the other tutorial, as in share it in the WhatsApp group, just in case people don't know that we're using my link. Just in case people from your tutorial don't know that we're using my link.
Ah, got you. Okay.
So if someone can just share that, my tutorial is good in the main group. Okay, thank you, Sandira. Sandira said she shared it in the main group. Thank you.
Okay.
So we should be all right. Yeah.
So we can talk about types of leadership. We've got democratic, autocratic, perhaps as a contrast. We've got someone who, you know, generates respect from Greer's example and people kind of follow along. We have examples where, you know, you kind of have to be strong and you're relying on evidence in order to, you know, affect a particular process as a leader and a requirement as a leader, because obviously you can't be responsible for an organization that's leeching money. Certainly in this case. So I just want to talk about what's on the screen now. And this is from the Catherine Miller text. She talks about a couple of models that I think are important. Because the question was, are there certain kinds of leadership that suit certain kinds of organization? So that was one thing we discussed. And also maybe the idea that there are certain times in an organization's life where you need certain kinds of leadership. And maybe there are times where an autocratic type of leadership, something more strong, is required in order to get an organization to a particular place, and that serves a particular function. And that's something that Dr. Eric Williams said about being in government as the first first Prime Minister of independent Trinidad and Tobago, that, you know, there needed to be a kind of a strong direction and a strong approach to leadership that came from making the decisions and not necessarily collaborating in the way that people might think in a democracy. And so he, of course, gained that label of benevolent dictator. And so interestingly, so did Manning, and well, I'm not sure of others. I don't know about Chambers, but you know, it's attracted a lot of purchase from various leaders. But let me talk about a couple of models then. She says the LMX model proposes that leaders develop different and perhaps more or less leadership relationships with different subordinates. So certain kinds of people will work well with certain kinds of leader. Leaders develop more or less effective leadership relationships with different subordinates. So there may be some kind of people within an organization with whom a leader is just not going to gel. In other words, it's not going to work out. And then I just wanted to talk about contingency theory. And it predicts that a leader who likes to focus on tasks would be more effective in structured situations than a leader who likes to focus on relationships. So there are certain kinds of leadership approach, and this model talks about focusing on tasks and focusing on relationships. So that's our second theoretical orientation. So what I want us to do is to keep all of those things that we've spoken about in mind and kind of in play when looking at this. Okay, so there are a couple of videos here which we're not going to watch, but essentially these talk about the democratic leadership style and the kinds of communication that come with that, and an autocratic leadership style and the kinds of communication that come with that. I've watched these videos, so let me give you a quick précis of some of the key and interesting things that they say that we might not think about. In an autocratic leadership style, tasks are done, and often when the leader isn't present, there is demotivation and things start to fall apart. So tasks are no longer achieved. The democratic leadership style works in encouraging and getting collaboration, but then, as we said, one of the problems might be not being the right person to actually, as Theresa May wasn't, not being the right person to actually get a consensus, just not having the right personality style. And maybe it depends in part on charisma. Maybe, you know, so charm and ability to use smooth language and be diplomatic and get people to follow along. And also another situation with the democratic leadership style is, even though you seek to make other people responsible, you're not abdicated of the final say. The final say still rests with you, the person in power, and therefore perhaps the ultimate responsibility. So if it goes wrong, you've asked a subordinate to take charge of something, but you cannot say, well, therefore it's no longer my problem. Right. Yeah. So that's something else to say about the style of leadership and a kind of model. All right. So here's our hypothesis. This is something that I was thinking about, and let me just put it to you. That leadership fitness it exists on a continuum of adaptability to the perfect fit. So this is my proposition, my hypothesis, and I want us now to do this. I want us to do this. So the method of analyzing that for us as a class, which we'll do in the next 20 minutes, is to come up with questions, up to 5 questions and up to 3 tasks for a possible leader. So the kinds of things that you would ask an individual, maybe an interview or in assessing them as an individual, to assess our ability to confirm that hypothesis. Do you understand? I wonder if people get what I'm asking. How would you say that, Greer? Do you think they get?
Yeah.
Is there another way of saying it, or?
No, basically how, yeah, what are these 5 questions that would help you determine?
Yes, 5 questions.
You know, which side of the seesaw you want to be on. So 5 questions to narrow it down, I guess.
Yes. I made
investigate.
Yes, exactly, to investigate that.
But you don't get 10 questions. You only get 5 questions, so make those 5 questions count. You
may even, I suppose, do it in less than 5. If you think you could come up with 3 questions that you think would determine, yes, the kind of leader that a person is, and whether or not they're therefore going to fit a certain kind of problem within an organization.
So, one of the questions cannot be, are you red or are you blue? Okay. you have to go better than that.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So look, here are some, I'm showing you my notes here. Here are some of the things that I think, some of the ways into the problem. You could think about a specific task to test the possibilities. So you could think about, you know, a pressure situation, crisis management, reputation. You could think about it, you could approach it by thinking of a model employee and look and put them in different situations, and where would that model employee actually not work out so well, or where would their strengths actually lead them to, you know, being the kind of the perfect fit, or would they need more adaptability to cope with that particular situation. Or you could do it by thinking about organization type and test, you know, your questions with that leader in different organizations to see whether, you know, it's going to work equally well. All right, so what I would like to do, how many people are with us?
We have 16.
Right. Is it possible for students to group up in 4 groups of 4? Can we, is there a way to do that, Greer? How do I get the full screen?
I've never done group breakout rooms before, but I'm about to.
Okay.
And 17 participants in, so how many rooms do we need? 4 rooms, 4 to 5 participants per room. Got it. Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen to the 2 of us though.
Okay, here's what I'd like to say. It's 12:21 by my clock. Let's come back at 12:40. So you have 20 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
For students to think up.
I believe that I will call back everyone because that's how Dr. Pear does it. I don't know.
Are you able to keep you and me in the one waiting room or whatever it is?
I think so. I think we stay here. I'm not too sure. I think so.
If
we're about to see.
If not, you can pull me back in.
Okay, got it. All right, so I'm gonna do the breakout rooms now. Good luck.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, so I'm being asked to join breakout room 3.
Okay, you could just not then. Sorry, I was just clicking names. I wasn't around.
Oh yeah.
But we can also I think that we can go in and out, and you are a co-host, so you should be able to join and come out, and like just if you wanted to go see what they're chatting about.
Okay.
But I'm gonna stay here and monitor the time. So 20 minutes, right? Let me make sure I have my time. Okay. I'm gonna set a little timer on my, I will get distracted, so I will set my timer.
Okay. Now some people, because they haven't been chatting, I'm hoping they're still, you know, at the other end of their devices and they're going to collaborate. But we'll see.
So I can see that, everyone's in. There's some people who are missing, as in they're here but they're not here.
Oh, okay.
Because I can see that they haven't joined their room that they're supposed to be in.
Ah, okay. So I'm seeing Asha. Asha was having a technical issue earlier.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. I know some of them are at work, so we have to
Okay.
just kind of go through it.
And Shakida, I'm seeing here.
Mm-hmm. Actually, yeah, we're good. So we have 4 rooms with at least 3 in each room. So we're good.
Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah. One has 4, the other 3 have 3.
Okay.
So I should give them just Asha and Shaquita. I'm pretty sure Asha's at work. I'm pretty sure Shaquita's at work as well.
Okay.
So that's an assumption, but.
So should we stop recording at this point, Greer, and then we can start it back?
Yes.
How are you finding this particular process, this a type of lecture? Is it working, do you think?
I think so.
Okay.
Good. Yeah, so far. So far, so good, I think.
All right. Good.
Little technical hiccups and stuff is the new normal as well. So just, move through it and get it done. Hopefully they were hearing one another and it worked.
I hope so.
Yeah. So everyone's coming back in.
So we were losing people along the way. Every time I opened a new link, I lost a few, I think.
Yeah. Especially if they just set it up and then they are working or doing whatever else they're doing. I don't know.
Right.
All right. I think everyone's.
So everyone's back with us?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let me just.
Do we need breakout rooms again or?
Hi.
Hi. Hi there.
After this discussion that we have, can you explain the assignment? Okay, thank you. Because I just want
agenda. Dr. Shepherd, you're muted. On the agenda, Jaya.
Okay.
No, go ahead. You were going to say something else?
Oh yeah, because like my group and I met like last night to just discuss it, but we were all confused because we still confused if it's like a individual essay or if it's like a group essay that we send in.
Okay.
So I guess you all will discuss that after we have this discussion.
Definitely.
Okay,
Yes, that's a good question too. All right, so welcome back everyone. I hope you were able to hear each other in your breakout rooms. So let's just hear from I don't know if we could just hear from a couple of groups. I don't know how you were grouped up. The kinds of questions you came up with. So what we're essentially doing is we're going to have to interrogate if the questions are the problem in answering that hypothesis, or if the hypothesis is wrong and the questions don't therefore help us. So it's the same kind of dynamic that we have. Is the leader responsible, in a different way, is the leader responsible for a failure when they've abdicated a task to somebody, or is that somebody the person who should shoulder the responsibility when something doesn't work out within an organization? And we were kind of split in the room as to whether it's leadership, total responsibility, or not. So let's just hear from you. We can start off by hearing from someone about the kinds of questions, and I'm going to make some notes. The kinds of questions you came up with to assess a leader. Anyone can start us off.
So for number 1, a leader who will create a successful environment, we ask, do you value or consider employees' emotions in the decision-making process?
You know what? I should have given you a steer. These needs here were things that I meant these were important kind of basic tenets that the environment, we obviously assume that the environment needs to be successful. that the communication needs to not kind of end up destroying an organization, and we want the reputation to remain positive. But I really wanted us to interrogate whether or not the questions could help us determine whether a leader is more adaptable or more kind of perfect for fit, and whether that is a good continuum on which to examine a leadership quality. But tell me what you were saying again.
Do you value or consider employees' emotions in the decision-making process?
Employee emotions. All right. So if someone is an adaptable leader, then what kind of answer would that generate?
They would include the contributions of all employees, or
what would be the failure of that, or what would be the downside to doing that? Considering
it would be a slow decision-making process.
Okay.
It could be that the ideas of the leader becomes lost in the I like it influence. I don't know how to put it exactly, but trying to make everybody happy would not fulfill the objective of the organization.
Okay. And okay, so you know, what was the question? How do you value, or do you value?
Do you value?
Do you value? Okay.
Yeah.
Another way of asking that question that might get a bit more nuance out of it is, to what degree do you value employee emotions? I have found, when I'm thinking about questions, particularly in kind of academic settings, that often if you ask a question of degrees, then you're not starting with you're starting with the position that it is important. And in your question, you're asking, is it important or not important? So what about the kind of leader who is the perfect fit for an organization, and that is the quality that would be the, you know, the kind of quality that you assume the leader requires? What would be their answers with respect to the pro and con of valuing employee emotions?
So I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'll think about it.
Okay. All right, Sadira, thank you. All right, let's hear from somebody else. What other questions did you come up with? Somebody else. So we've had a question around employee emotions.
Hi, Sue. So one of the persons in my group came up with this question that says, what principles would you abide by to ensure the success of the organization?
Okay.
Another question is,
before you go further, Jar, what would be, so if you had a leader who was adaptable, in terms of their answers, what kind of answers would you expect from a leader who did focus on that?
Well, the principles to abide by, I guess, definitely not a laissez-faire leader. I guess, what principles would you abide by to ensure the success of your organization?
Yeah, so if that was a question that you're putting to the leader, and the leader was on that continuum that we're talking about, and they were highly adaptable, how do you think they would respond to that?
I guess it depends on the type of organization you work at. So I guess if I work at KFC, I would want to know that, hey, you're looking out for your employees, and yes, you're looking out for the income that you're bringing in. So to make sure that it's successful both ways, you know, your employees get some rest, everybody has like a schedule that they work at, you know, everybody do their work to the best of their ability, like everybody has their sections, you know, the fry cook, the cashier, the manager, and you know, everybody just work together to have a successful fried chicken empire.
But here's the question, Jai, that you're asking. If you have an adaptable leader, how does this affect this idea of abiding by principles? And if you have a leader who is on the perfect fit for the job, how does that affect the principles that, you know, they abide by? That's what you're asking with your question, and in order to test the hypothesis. So if you have a leader who's completely adaptable, how does that impact the way in which they relate to this idea of principles to ensure success?
If they're adaptable.
Dr. Shepherd, could I come in? Because I was in the group with
Yeah,
Jer.
Jump
Sure.
in.
Yeah, I think probably you could look at integrity as one of the principles, right? Because to me, you want a leader that holds to his decision. He holds to the commitments he might have made to the employees. You know, so whatever he said, he stands by it.
But
right?
but let me just put this to you, Bowen. If a leader is the kind of leader who is adaptable, he or she may have varying definitions for what integrity means according to circumstances or according to the employee. Whereas if they're a perfect fit employee, i.e. they have all the right criteria for a given moment in time, they might say integrity means this, and unless you meet this benchmark, then you're failing in the standards. Do you get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying, but then I'm not sure. Is integrity measured like that?
Well, but that's what I'm saying. What we're doing is saying, is this question a good question to assess how an adaptable leader would work, and how a leader who's, you know, perfect fit for the moment, perfect fit for the job, for the given circumstances, be for the job. So is that a good question then?
Well, I would say yes, because we're looking at the principles of the leader, you know, the integrity principles of the leader, whether or not that individual is one who is honest, who has high principles, has high integrity. So in terms of adaptability, I would say yes, because whereas those qualities are concerned, it would make the person, I would say, probably perfect for the position, in that they'd be able to more or less fit to maneuver basically in any situation, as I use the term adaptable.
Okay. All right, so integrity was an important principle that you were measuring, that you were using to measure how adaptability works with respect to integrity, and how perfect fit works with respect to integrity.
Yeah.
You were?
Well, yeah.
Is that where your discussion went?
With the group, or what I was just saying, talking about?
With the group.
But we had other questions, so it wasn't just that
Sure.
We had other questions we came up with.
Sure. Okay.
So, but that.
Well, that was an important one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello.
Good.
Hello.
Hi there.
Okay, so basically, what I was thinking, right? And well, I was trying to express it in words, but putting things in words is like one sentence is always hard. So generalizing it, basically, a leader, right? It depends on your personality. And if you ask somebody a question, the person is going to respond how you want to hear, right? So when you ask somebody a question, let's say they want a job, they want to be a leader, a manager, they're going to respond telling you what you want to hear. So basically, you always know what somebody's looking for generally, and it's easy to answer a question based on how you asked, right?
You know what, I would have to say that I actually disagree with you.
Yeah.
But let me hear what else you're saying.
Yeah. So a lot of, like, a person who's good at improvising, right? A person who's very creative, and you could put them on a spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. They could give you good answers, right? But to me, to assess a leader, to get a leader, you'd have to observe their actions. It's something you do through observation.
Got
right?
you, yeah.
So if I put a group of people together in a room and you tell them to do a task, right?
Yep.
Or get a task done, automatically there would be people that, okay, let's do this, let's get it done. And there are some people that will sit back. Like I myself, I would, depending on the environment, I would sit back and see, okay, who steps up? Who wants to take charge, right? Because there are some people that want to take charge. And then when they take charge, depending on their personality, they will want to lead in a specific manner, right?
Yes.
And they may not be studying everybody else. They might have their own idea of how it needs to be done. And then there are other people like myself, I would sit back and watch and realize, okay, nobody's taking charge. And then I would step up, right?
So are you sitting back and watching though, because you think somebody may be better qualified than you to deal with a problem? Why?
No,
why
not necessarily better qualified, but there are a lot of people that are pushy. So like for me, if there are a lot of pushy people, so like there are people that regardless of what they want to take the front and at the front center of the stage, they want to be stars, right? They want to shine, right? And for me, if you want to do that, okay, right?
So then would you let someone go in front just to see if they fail? Is that what you're doing? Are you testing their ability to match skill with gumption?
Yes, most times. And if I realize, okay, what they are doing isn't working, right? Then I would say, okay, this isn't working. We need to find a better approach to get the task done.
Okay.
So generally speaking, like with respect to sports and other things, right? There's some people, they are quiet leaders, right? That they may not say something, they might not be speaking a lot, but when they do speak, everybody gets quiet. You know, everybody listens. You know, they say like still waters run deep.
Yeah. So
it all depends on how you put it. And then some people, like I was watching a video where they were talking about, they gave out like seedlings, like a seed to everybody in the office to plant, right? And they had to grow it for 6 months. And the guy came, his plant wasn't growing. And he came back to the office after 6 months with a plant pot with the seed inside and no tree, right? Nothing grew. And he got the job because basically what they gave to everybody was like seeds that would not grow. But everybody's plant was not growing and they switched the seeds out, right? So that they can show, hey, my plant is growing. And he got the job because although his own wasn't growing and he was watching everybody else's seeds grow, he was just like, this is mine. Like I've been doing what I can do.
Right.
You know, and
so,
that was it.
That's a really good example. And maybe that is an example of integrity, perhaps, or an element of integrity. And so if we were testing integrity, we might assign a task rather than a question, because as you say, you can show it. And also it's testing someone's ability to cope with the fact that they don't fit in, the fact that things are going on around them and they are going against the grain or they're not part of the norm. And therefore it's testing their resilience to be themselves and, you know, stick by their convictions.
Yeah.
So if a person was adaptable and you put them and you gave them a task, what do you think, how do you think they would react, opposed to if they were a perfect fit, if they felt themselves to be a perfect fit for a job? How differently do you think those two kinds of people would behave if they were either side of those spectrum, on that spectrum?
I think it just depends on the person, to be honest, because some people, like, they do whatever it takes, you know, to be the best, regardless of what, and then they may be unethical in doing it. And then some people, they're doing the best with what they have, and if their best isn't good enough, they say, okay, this is the best I could do, this is what they're given, and, you know, they hold strong to their moral standing is strong. So they wouldn't try to cheat, they wouldn't try to shortcut it. They just say, listen, this is the best I could do, and that's it.
Honestly, sorry, I'm seeing you up as Sharp Family. What's your first name?
Christian.
Christian. So what I'm getting is that if you're the kind of person that would be presented with a task and sit back and be reflective and wait to see what happens, that you are the kind of person who's more on that scale, the more adaptable, because in a given situation, you would either put yourself in front or you would sit back and wait. Whereas a person who thinks they're the perfect fit feels that they have the answer, and therefore they would feel confident in their ability and be the person to say, okay, let me tackle this. I've got it.
Yeah. So I think
that is a really good task for testing that.
Mm-hmm. So generally speaking, if I am put in a group and I realize there isn't any leader, right? There isn't any leader, then I instinctively would take over, right? If we have a deadline and we have to meet a deadline, and I realize, okay, there's nobody taking charge and needs to get done, then I will take over and say, listen, these are the things we need to get done. I don't care how you do it, get it done. These are the dates you need to get it done by. It doesn't matter how you do it, if you want to do it one day at a time or you do all on the last day. All that matters is you get it done, and that's me. But other people will say, you need to get it done in this specific way, and I'm not concerned with how. It's just get from point A to point B. That's all I'm concerned with. How you do that is up to you. If you choose to do it efficiently, that's great. If you're inefficient in how you're doing it, that's up to you. But because everybody works differently, so I can't force somebody to do it. But they have to get it done. And that's my thing at the end of the day. Just get it done.
But what if someone gets it done, but it's not up to the standard you think it requires in a group assignment, say?
Right. If it's not up to standard, then...
Well, and not up to a standard that you have set. Yeah.
Right. And if it's not up to the standard, then that person may not have been suitable to get that task done in the group.
Right.
You know? So a lot of people will say, yeah, they'll do it and they're good at this. So a lot of people, if you ask them who's good at editing or who's good at doing something else, right? Whatever their skill is, they might say they're good. A lot of people, like you watch shows, people go on America's Got Talent, and they cannot sing. And I don't know who told them that they can sing well.
Probably a parent.
Yeah, exactly that. So it all depends on who is talking to them, their level of confidence, and then you know, okay, well, they're definitely not good at this, then we need to change. So you have to like set, if the deadline is on the 30th, let's say 10 days before, what have you come up with? You know, this is where we set a shorter deadline.
Let me just complexify that one point a little bit more, and this will be our last thing, I think, because we've kind of run out of time. If a 6-year-old goes on the stage to sing and they bust basically and they're terrible, how do you judge them as the judge of America's Got Talent, a 6-year-old?
Well, a 6-year-old, if they don't do well, right, regardless, in what they do, you can see little glimpses of potential, right, in all things, right? Once you see somebody do something, you know there's like a diamond in the rough there.
Sure.
You know, some people, you know, like for me, I know I cannot sing. So regardless of what, that is not, I'm not good at that.
Right.
But some people might say, you know, you're good, because a lot of people will, instead of telling you the truth, they tell you what you want to hear to make you feel better about yourself.
Or maybe like the 6-year-old, they say, you know, you've got this, go for it. Greg, sorry, you're muted. I know you were saying something. Oh.
No, I was just like, oh, she's only 6. How could I tell her?
Exactly. So this is...
I am not going to be the one to make a 6-year-old cry today, no matter what.
So this is the other thing. We're not necessarily just judging someone on their ability, because we could have someone come on stage and they're a great singer, this is an adult, a great singer or not a great singer, but if it's a 6-year-old, you're actually judging them by a different criteria. You're saying, and you did this yourself, Christian, you said, well, maybe they have potential.
Yeah.
So actually, that task of, you know, seeing whether someone has integrity or not, actually can be quite complex, because if it were someone who maybe had been misled, maybe like a 6-year-old whose parents said, you know, you should go for this, you're really good. And actually they get up on stage and by comparison with other people, they're not good. But actually in their own in their house, they are good relative to their family. Mm-hmm. Then is it right to criticize them for that?
No. So
or
like,
judge them on that?
So like, I'm an athlete, right? And
Yeah.
throughout the age group, in the Caribbean, our team would be the best in the Caribbean, right? We would beat other countries 40-0, clearly better than everybody else in the Caribbean. And
Right.
what my parents would tell me is that you are a big fish in a small pond.
Yeah.
Right? So what you have to do now is like be able to say, okay, you're good in comparison to everybody else around you. But then you need to now show them, okay, this is the reality. People around the world are at this level, just like in Trinidad. The quality of our products produced locally is not, you can't compare it to foreign-based products, right? Generally speaking.
Okay.
Right? So a lot of the great products that we have locally are from people that have traveled, you know, they went all over the world, they see what other countries have to offer, and then they come back and say, okay, this is how they do it in more developed countries. This is what works across there. How can we start to implement their procedures and protocols and their standards locally? How can we do it? Is it realistic to do? And then you start to implement it. And then gradually you would see nowadays customer service is becoming a little better in certain companies because they realize ways. Customer service is very important. So some companies tend to do it because they want to compete with others. But like a few weeks ago when we were talking about like Movie Town, they monopolize it, right? So they don't feel pressure to improve anything because they know they don't have to. But if a small business wanted to open up a small theater, they would now have to say, okay, in order to compete with Movie Town, I would have to provide a service that's better than Movie Town in order for people to want to come here.
Or different.
Or different.
I mean, uniquely different for whatever, it has a certain kind of audience. Just to go back to your point about the athletes though.
Yeah.
So if you are, competing in an era in 100 meters men's sprint where Usain Bolt is active, and you are number 2, how do you keep yourself? I mean, what is your thinking about why you're competing when you know you can't run 100 meters in 9.58 or whatever he did?
Well, in that case, a lot of times your aim is to be the best, right? Nobody starts a train to not be the best. But then it comes down to genetics, and then you do the best you can do. So your aim, okay, if I know Usain Bolt is the fastest, I want to train to beat him, right? So now a lot of times, a lot of people tend to do research on how does Usain Bolt train? What does he eat? What does he do for him to get so fast? And then a lot of countries realize ways. Is ground provision. So now they're starting to feed their athletes provision and think, okay, that might help, you know?
Yeah. What I'm really getting at though is what is the not so much the motivation, but how does the athlete that's always going to come second, knowing they're always going to come second, how does that person think about this race?
I don't think they know. A lot of times it's not that you know you're going to come second, like Gatlin. In his mind, before he raced Usain Bolt, he was saying he's going to beat him, you know? In his mind, he is going to beat him, and he's going to train to beat him, and in his mind, he's going to win. And then he loses on the day, and all he talk about, I'm going to beat you, I'm faster than you, I'm going to win, is like, okay, you're clearly not faster. But leading up to that day, in his mind, he was the best, and he wanted to be the best, you know? So it was a state of mind, essentially. He didn't think for any second that he was going to lose.
Right, got you.
So it was like that. It's a mental thing.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Now, I'm looking at the time. We're now over time, and I know Jaya wanted to ask about the assignment. I think what we'll have to do is say we'll leave it there for today in terms of our discussion. I probably spent too much time leading up to this point and should have given us more time to talk about it. But I hope this has been a useful discussion and analysis into the relationship between leadership and communication, the relationship between leadership and success in an organization, and a process by which you might start with some theory, have some ideas, and then have a concept that you wish to test. And as you will have seen from the questions that you generated in your own breakout groups, sometimes it will come down to task, sometimes it will come down to discussion, question, And what we're doing is having to balance, are the questions sufficient to test the problem, or is the way we view the problem wrong? And just by way of illustration, I'm saying, look, is the seesaw the best metaphor for the representation of the relationship between those two qualities, adaptability and being the perfect fit for the job? Or have I artificially put them on a continuum as though you're one end of the spectrum and the other end of the spectrum, when actually those two things aren't a useful benchmark by which to measure a leader and whether they would be the right person, or whether they would be an effective person rather in an organization? Greer, do you have anything to say in summary about what we've done today?
Not really. There was one thing that popped up and came to mind, which is this.
You're a little bit quiet. I don't know if Greer, your mic's down, or your, yes, a bit better. Yeah.
Hear me now?
Yeah.
Probably my hair anyway. There was this notion of even a leader, you know, you can authentically make your way up the ladder, you know, into a leadership position, but that doesn't mean that you necessarily belong there, even though you got there, you know, via merit or whatever accomplishments or whatever. Eventually, there's this notion that, and I forget which theory it is or where I've read it, but even the best of leaders can eventually reach their ceiling, their optimal level of this is the best I can do. So many times leaders find themselves in positions where it is above their head, it is above their ability, but they're nevertheless in a leadership position. And very few of them, if any of them, are able to say, all right, I'm a great leader, but this is a bit more than what I can, you know, lead. This is a bit above my head. This is out of my domain or realm of capabilities. Nobody says that.
Is this the Peter principle, that you essentially reach your highest level? I think
it's a Peter principle. That's it.
You reach your highest level of incompetence, meaning all of the things that you can achieve, you get to the point where you can, you know, you hit a ceiling and you don't have the skill level, or you're just not the right fit anymore for whatever reason.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Really good. Yeah. Really good. Any questions from anyone about what we've spoken about today?
So once you reach a ceiling, right? So when you reach a ceiling, how do you know that you've reached a ceiling? And then when you do reach a ceiling, is it that, okay, now I can't do any better on my own, but I can still lead, right? So now I'd have to say, okay, I can't do any better on my own. Now I need help, you know? Now I need to find the best, some people with better ideas than me, you know? So a lot of companies like Google and stuff, they'd have designers come in, they would work for a period of time, and then after that period of time, they wouldn't have any more ideas. So then you'd need fresh ideas, essentially. Yeah. So they're constantly turning out, getting new ideas all the time.
Yeah.
But it might have the same leader, quote unquote, yeah.
Well, some organizations believe in the same way that you want to keep innovating your ideas, you want to keep innovating who's leading you as well, in a sense, and change that up. And so, again, you know, there are those that believe in consistency. So they invest in longevity of a leader, and they hire to suit. So this leader will be with us for a very long period of time. And then there are those that believe in, this is what we need to do. These are the changes we need to make in order to be able to keep on the top of our game and innovate and keep reaching, you know, higher, keep raising the bar, I suppose.
Yeah.
And when you do reach that ceiling, I mean, the Peter principle doesn't necessarily discuss or talk about what do you do when you reach that ceiling, but it is that awareness of knowing when you've reached your own ceiling, and knowing when you need help, knowing when you need the assistance and you need your staff more than they need you, and being able to delegate and rely on them.
Yeah. You know what? I have a different perspective on it, and that is that no ceiling actually exists. That the concept of a ceiling is created because we are measuring our ability or our ingredients, three ingredients in terms of achieving success: our skill, our drive, and the environment. So in essence, we can have many different kinds of ceiling that we've artificially created. If we get bored of a job we're doing, have we reached a ceiling, or have we just decided, you know, we're no longer interested in this task? We've gotten too old for it. We're no longer interested in it. We've lost our excitement. You know, it's no longer new for us because we've seen everything and done everything. Have we reached a skill level ceiling because we actually, there is no training available. There's no other way we can, you know, kind of get new skills and therefore overcome a certain problem? Or is it the environment has changed and therefore the ceiling, the notion of the ceiling has been created because we're actually now dealing with a different kind of problem? So for me, ceiling doesn't really exist. And that's what I would say.
Yeah, I hear that. And I feel like for me, if I'm no longer being challenged, I'm bored, I'm ready to move on. That's my feeling, if
right.
That makes sense. So it's not that I've reached, I'm out of my game anymore. It's not that I can't do the task. I'm just no longer interested. I'm bored.
Yeah, desire has changed.
I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So really interesting discussion. Thank you, everyone. I don't know if Jay is still here or did she have to leave?
I don't know.
So she had one question about the assignment, and that is it one single piece that has to be submitted, or is it is it one per person or one per group? It is a group assignment, and there's just one research report that comes out from the whole group. Were there any other, I hope that's clear. Are there any other questions? No. Okay.
I was just gonna ask, just to confirm that Gray is gonna put us into groups?
No, you all can choose, or I don't know, Dr. But did you want me to put them into groups, or?
So I
thought I put you all into groups. Why do I think that I put you all into
You know what happened, Greer? You and I were discussing an approach to putting students into groups.
Yeah, I don't think we finalized it.
And we said we would come back to it. And
okay.
I sent you an email with, I think the way I grouped mine, because
you did.
Right, because I realized that I wanted to, you know, kind of take an active hand in putting people in groups. So
yeah. I'll email my tutorial and we'll sort that out then. And
yes.
I'm going to look at it and see, and then I'll figure it out, and then I'll let you all know. I'll send you all an email shortly.
Yes. Okay. So yes.
With respect to the groups, right? So like I don't know I don't know anybody in my tutorial, in Grace's tutorial, but I know in Dr. Shepard's tutorial, right? Mm-hmm. So is it the case that, okay, am I going to work with the people that I don't know? Is it possible to be blended? Can't be blended. Yeah. Separate tutorial.
I don't know.
I mean, I already put, for a couple of reasons. One, I put mine in groups already. I mean, I wish we'd had this discussion before because it is an interesting idea. Secondly, you know, as with life, sometimes you join a job and you end up working with a team that's already there. And so this would be one of those kinds of situations. But the way I wanted to have you consider this assignment is that you're collaborators on an assignment to try and reduce this, you know, kind of intra-group competition and people feeling that they're, you know, people not pulling their weight. I really want you to think about this as a collaboration, and also realize that, you know, the people that you meet in this tutorial, they may well be people you end up working with some point later in life, who knows? So it pays to get to know people, to challenge yourself, to raise doubts and lean on your strengths, and, you know, see how you can negotiate working with different kinds of people. That's what I would say, Christian.
Okay, cool, no problem, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, any other questions?
Oh, Dr. Shepherd, I only saw your email about, I sent my, not the essay assignment, my third and fourth query, my second and third query to email, and I only checked it like yesterday, and I saw you responded saying to upload it to my learning.
Ah, okay. All right, well, listen, I'll go through emails and stuff, and, you know, it was just to make life easier that I put it on my learning.
Yeah.
But I will sort that out.
Okay,
So,
no problem.
Yeah, don't worry. So thanks for alerting me.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks so much. So let's call that a wrap then, and we will be meeting again next week. And I believe that the next deadline actually is the end of next week, and that's for the plan that you're going to set out in your groups. Let me just check if I got that right. Did anyone else look at the deadlines and see whether that was the case? Shall I do that for you now? Group and org. Course. Let me just have a quick look. Greer, we could probably stop recording at this point.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Oops, am I sharing? I'm still sharing.